The Battle of Stalingrad, one of the most significant confrontations during World War II, took place between the 17th of July, 1942 and the 2nd of February, 1943. This battle became a symbol of Soviet resilience and marked a decisive turning point on the Eastern Front. Both Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union invested heavily in this conflict, with millions of soldiers and civilians involved, and its outcome reshaped the course of the war. German advance and strategic goals. Adolf Hitler, leader of Nazi Germany, initiated Operation Barbarossa in June 1941, with the goal of quickly defeating the Soviet Union. However, after the initial German victories, the campaign stalled. By the summer of 1942, Hitler aimed to secure the oil fields in the Caucasus to fuel his war machine and capture the industrial city of Stalingrad on the Volga River, thus severing Soviet supply lines. Stalingrad, named after Soviet leader Joseph Stalin, became a symbol of prestige for both sides, as each sought to control the city. The battle begins in summer. The German Sixth Army, commanded by General Friedrich Paulus, began its advance towards Stalingrad in late July 1942. At the same time, the Luftwaffe launched devastating air raids on the city, reducing large parts of Stalingrad to rubble. By mid-September, the Germans had reached the outskirts of the city and began intense urban combat, which would last for months. The Soviet 62nd Army, led by General Vasily Chukov, mounted a fierce defense, fighting house to house and using the ruined city to their advantage. Urban warfare, a struggle for every street. The urban warfare in Stalingrad was unlike anything the Germans had encountered before. Soviet soldiers fought tenaciously for every building, street, and square, often turning factories, apartments, and even sewers into defensive positions. The Red Army coined the phrase "not a step back" as they held on to the city despite overwhelming odds. By late October, the Germans controlled most of Stalingrad, but they could not completely dislodge the remaining Soviet forces along the western bank of the Volga River. Stalin ordered all reinforcements possible, knowing that the city's fall would be catastrophic for Soviet morale and the war effort. The turning of the tide, Operation Uranus. On the 19th of November, 1942, the Red Army launched a massive counteroffensive known as Operation Uranus. The operation was designed to encircle the German Sixth Army by attacking the weaker Romanian and Italian forces guarding the flanks of the German positions north and south of Stalingrad. Within days, the Soviets successfully breached the Axis lines, and on the 23rd of November, the Soviet pincers met near the town of Kalach, completing the encirclement of over 200,000 German soldiers. The Sixth Army, now trapped inside Stalingrad, faced dire conditions as winter set in. The siege of the German Sixth Army. As the encirclement tightened, the Germans within Stalingrad were cut off from supplies and reinforcements. Hitler refused to allow Paulus to break out of the encirclement, ordering him to stand fast and hold the city at all costs. The Luftwaffe attempted to airlift supplies to the trapped army, but these efforts fell far short of the necessary amounts. The German soldiers, now facing starvation, freezing temperatures, and constant Soviet attacks, struggled to survive through the harsh winter. Soviet victory, the surrender of the German forces. By late January 1943, the situation for the German Sixth Army had become hopeless. Soviet forces steadily reduced the pocket of German resistance, and on the 30th of January, Hitler promoted Paulus to Field Marshal, expecting him to fight to the death, as no German field marshal had ever been captured alive. However, on the 31st of January, Paulus surrendered to the Soviet forces. The remnants of the German Sixth Army capitulated on the 2nd of February, 1943. This marked the end of the Battle of Stalingrad and a catastrophic defeat for Nazi Germany. The human cost of the battle. The Battle of Stalingrad was one of the bloodiest in history, with staggering losses on both sides. It is estimated that the Axis forces suffered around 800,000 casualties, including killed, wounded, or captured soldiers. The Soviets, too, endured immense losses, with approximately 1 million soldiers and civilians killed or wounded during the battle. The exact number of civilian casualties in Stalingrad is unknown, as many died during the bombing raids or from the harsh conditions during the fighting. The city itself was almost completely destroyed, leaving little more than ruins after the conflict. Impact on World War II. The Soviet victory at Stalingrad was a turning point in World War II, shifting the momentum on the Eastern Front in favor of the Allies. After Stalingrad, the Red Army went on the offensive, pushing the Germans westward and eventually reaching Berlin in May 1945. The psychological impact of the defeat was profound for Nazi Germany, as it shattered the myth of their invincibility and diminished the prestige of Hitler's leadership. For the Soviet Union, Stalingrad became a symbol of national pride and resilience, celebrated as a heroic defense of the motherland. Stalingrad and its legacy. The legacy of the Battle of Stalingrad extends beyond military history. In the decades following the war, the battle became a defining moment of Soviet identity and was memorialized in films, books, and art. The city itself was renamed Volgograd in 1961, during the de-Stalinization campaign under Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev, but its heroic role in the war has continued to be honored. Today, memorials such as the Mamayev Kurgan and the colossal statue the Motherland Calls commemorate the sacrifices made by the Soviet people during this epic struggle. The Battle of Stalingrad was not just a military engagement, it was a symbol of the ideological and existential struggle between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union. The resilience of the Soviet defenders, combined with strategic errors on the part of the German command, led to one of the most important victories in World War II. The battle's outcome not only altered the course of the war but also shaped the political landscape of the post-war world.